All right, welcome to episode 148 of the Charm City Birdwatch podcast. I'm your host, Nolan McGraw. Got quite a bit to get to here today. We're talking a lot of Orioles this week, obviously, but some more Terps news that we can get to at the end. But if you've been listening the past couple weeks, before we get rolling here, I do got to tell you guys about this event coming up. It's here. It starts tomorrow, April 12th through the 17th. You can go ahead and join the Maryland SPCA for their virtual Festival of the Animals. It's the doggone best way to support your community. Go ahead. You can raise money to save homeless pets, keep families together by joining a fundraising team, or you can create your own team with family, friends, neighbors, whoever. Every dollar raised is going to give sick and injured pets a second chance, and it's going to help support families in Baltimore with pet food assistance, vet care, and more. And when you register for $29, you'll also receive a festival t-shirt and a commemorative medal. Go ahead, you can sign up right now. It's never too late at mdspca.org/birdwatch. Again, that is mdspca.org/birdwatch. That will start tomorrow. But if you're listening to this, it's never too late to sign up. You can go ahead and sign up. It's going to be an event that lasts the entire week. Going to be great stuff. So check that out. All right. Orioles. Last week, a very happy-go-lucky episode. The Orioles had already secured an opening series victory in Boston. After I finished recording that episode, they finished the sweep, beat up the Red Sox once again on Sunday, start the season 3-0. We're on top of the world. Everything was working. The offense was putting up runs. The pitching was lights out. Everything was great. See if they can take that momentum into New York to take on the Yankees, a team that is favored by many to represent the American League in the World Series and maybe even win the World Series. They've had the Orioles' number for the past couple of years, especially in the Bronx at Yankee Stadium. It has been an absolute bloodbath for the Orioles. They have not had much, if any, success in the Bronx, and I believe still have not won a series in Yankee Stadium since the very first series of 2019. The opening series, Brandon Hyde picked up his first win as a manager in that series. They took 2 of 3, and since then, all the way through the rest of 2019, in the shortened 2020 season, and now here to start 2021, the Orioles have not taken at least 2 of 3 in the Bronx. And that continued this week as they almost got swept, but they managed to steal the last game of the series in an extra inning thriller. We'll talk about that, but just in general, Orioles have come crashing back down to earth. Offense, ice cold. Pitching, okay at best, but really not great. But the big takeaway for me is the offense. You lose 4 out of your last 5 since that opening sweep against Boston. The offense gets blanked twice by New York, putting up goose eggs on Monday and Tuesday. And then, as the week continues, you look at those games Monday through the home opener on Thursday, the Orioles made history in a bad way. They're the first team in the history of baseball, or I should say the history of recorded stats that we have a hold of, the first team to strike out 13 or more times in 4 straight games. Wow. And there's a couple of things with this, and I've heard some people talking about this. One, how has this not happened before? How is this the record? I mean, that seems the Orioles did it with ease. And when it was happening, we were talking about it. They said, oh, they're striking out too much here. They're striking out too much. But no one was saying they're striking out at a historically bad rate. I mean, we went through the 2019 season. We went through, and that was god-awful. We went through really any of the seasons the last 3, 4, 5 years. It's been some really tough stuff, some really tough at-bats. We've seen Chris Davis get thrown out there and time after time after time. Or at least we're not dealing with that this year. But they're still breaking strikeout records even without Chris Davis. How about that? But you look at it. I mean, 13 or more times in 4 straight games. 13's kind of a weird, arbitrary number, but I'm sure there's been a few teams. I would venture to guess there's been a handful of teams that have struck out at least 10 times 4 or 5 games in a row in the last couple of years, just with the way baseball has shifted as a sport into the 3 outcomes style of the game. Home run, strikeout, walk. But 13 times in 4 straight games, I mean, that's the record. That's the record. I would have thought it would have happened by now, but it's just one of those weird baseball stats. And again, Orioles on the wrong side of some historical not achievements, some historical happenings in the game of baseball. And really, besides Cedric Mullins, who is killing it in the leadoff spot right now, everyone else is struggling to find their footing. I mean, that includes Anthony Santander. I know he's got a couple home runs, his fair share of RBIs. Batting average is still below 250. Trey Mancini, hit his first home run of the season last night. That was great to see. He's still struggling to find his footing. He also struck out 2 times last night. His strikeout numbers have been super inflated to start the year. So, I mean, maybe the home run is a sign of things to come for him, but it just has been everyone. Even if they have a moment here, a moment there where they hit a home run or they get some timely hitting with, runners in scoring position, something like that, it's just they can't string that together. It's always sandwiched between strikeouts, ground into double plays, just the worst possible outcomes at the plate. And then you get to the bottom of the order, and this is where it gets really rough because, some of these guys aren't necessarily expected to be the offensive producers. They're not expected to be the firepower in this lineup. But it starts to look even worse when the guys who are supposed to be producing are cold. Again, Santander, not that hot. Mancini striking out a lot. Ryan Mountcastle struck out 3 times last night. This is all just, it's not good. And then you get to the bottom of the lineup, and Michael Franco, Rio Ruiz, Freddie Galvis, these guys are really struggling. And in the case of Ruiz and Galvis, they're not here with high expectations for their batting. Michael Franco is. He was brought in strictly for his bat, for his offense. He wasn't brought in to be this outstanding defensive third baseman. So quite frankly, I think Rio Ruiz is a better defensive third baseman than him. I don't really think that's up for debate. So he's brought in just for his offense. Recording this on Sunday, he has an RBI in this game that they're playing right now to close this weekend series against the Red Sox. But besides that, he's been very cold. Everyone's been cold. Besides Cedric Mullins. Cedric Mullins is not just hot, he is scorching hot, batting over 500. He's finding ways to get on base. He's doing it all. And how about his defense as well? Laying out, diving, catches, stuff like that, catches at the wall. Incredible defense for Cedric Mullins and just absolutely scorching at the plate. So there's something that you can hang your hat on if you're an Orioles fan. Tune in and watch Cedric Mullins. He's the leadoff hitter. You can tune in, watch that first at-bat of the game, and then maybe check out for a while, hop back in, see how Cedric's doing, and then check out. But other than that, there's been very little offensive excitement for this team. Again, they put up 2 goose eggs in New York. So far in this Boston series, push a couple runs across, but not enough to seriously compete. And now they're at risk of getting swept here today, I believe down 5-1 as I'm speaking to you. About halfway through this game, they're at risk of suffering a sweep to the Red Sox. And I guess that leads me to pitching here. I mean, we're only a week into the season, a little over a week. We know the offense is god-awful. But the pitching, surprisingly, has ranged from, okay or slightly below average to even good at times this year. John Means, Bruce Zimmerman, they're kind of leading the way in terms of the starting rotation right now. Matt Harvey's not far behind them. But for guys that are going deep, John Means 7 innings on opening day, only lasted 4 2/3 against New York, but didn't give up a lot of runs, only 1 earned run, I believe, just got an inflated pitch count and had to leave. And Zimmerman, 2 starts under his belt so far this year, both against Boston, 6 innings pitched, 3 earned runs in each one. I'll take that. I'll take that all season from Bruce Zimmerman. That's as consistent as you can ask for from a young pitcher still trying to find his way in the majors. So, 3 earned runs or less, you'll take that every time from your starting pitchers. And usually that should be good enough to allow your offense to score more runs. But with how ice cold this Orioles offense is right now, that is not the case. With how cold the Orioles offense is right now, if you're not pitching a shutout, you're not going to win the game. So I'm not holding it against the Orioles pitching staff too much when they do have some shortcomings because, again, 0 run support. And like I said, Matt Harvey not far behind. He's still getting there, trying to get to that 5-inning mark. But you watch him pitch, and he's just got that composure. He's got that composure, that control. It looks like he knows what he's doing. He looks like he's confident on the mound, and some things aren't going his way. He's given up a home run here, a home run there, maybe walking a guy where he shouldn't here or there. But I'm looking at his strikeout numbers, and I like that. He's not going that deep in games, but he's still putting up 4 or 5 strikeouts in these short starts. So if he can go a little bit longer and he becomes a guy that's going at least 5 innings, maybe close to 6 in his starts, and he's giving you 6, 7 strikeouts a game in those starts, I think you got to be really happy with that. But again, this isn't just a box score evaluation of Matt Harvey. Watch him pitch. He looks like he's in control. And that's just something we haven't been able to say about Matt Harvey the past couple of years when he's been struggling. After he suffered that fall off from his early career success with the Mets, he's admitted to it, loses some of his velocity, and he couldn't overcome that. As a young guy, he was just going out there and overpowering people, blowing the fastball past guys. Now he can't do that anymore. It's not like his velocity's completely disappeared, but he's not blowing people away like he used to. So he's got to be in better control. He's got to have more control over his pitches. He's just got to be better all around with his pitch selection, his command. Everything has to be better when your velocity takes a step down. And so far this year, through 2 starts, I'm liking what I'm seeing from Matt Harvey. And quite frankly, he's outperforming what a lot of people expected, myself included. I didn't even think he was going to make the starting rotation to start the year. When spring training started, I thought there was no way Matt Harvey was going to make the starting rotation. Long man in the bullpen at best. I couldn't be more wrong. I also thought that King Felix Hernandez was going to be in the starting rotation without much resistance, and he doesn't make the club. So I was completely wrong on both of those guys. Honestly, I'm pretty impressed with what I'm seeing from Harvey so far, and I think he's showing us enough to say this is a guy that's capable of tweaking a thing here, tweaking a thing over here, and figuring it out in his 3rd, 4th, and 5th start. I mean, he's certainly done enough to warrant more starts from here. Then the rest of the starting rotation, not so much. Dean Kramer, only one start under his belt, not great. Let's wait to see more from him. But Lopez, he's on the mound again today. Not a great outing. His first start of the year, not great. We know what it is with Lopez. He's a fifth guy in the rotation at best. I think he absolutely has a place on this team. He's definitely got a spot as a long man in the bullpen if the starting spot doesn't work out. But for now, with no one else really challenging for a starter role, he's going to get those innings. He's going to get those opportunities. Now, that could certainly change, and that leads me to the bullpen here where I think some things need to change. Maybe not right away, not right now, but we're staring down the barrel of a gun here with this 162-game season. Last year, 60 games, that's nothing. With a full major league bullpen, you can get through 60 games. I don't care how bad you are. You can get through 60 games. The 2019 Orioles pitching staff could have gotten through 60 games without much of an issue. Not saying they were going to win, but 60 games, you get through that without being worn out or tired or completely overworked. So we go from 60 to 162 again. Hunter Harvey, he's injured. That's one guy that you're supposed to rely on in this bullpen. He's not there. So the amount of guys that we were going into this season knowing we could rely on in this bullpen, it's not a lot. And the amount that have started the season performing to those expectations is even smaller. Really, it's just Tanner Scott and Cesar Valdez. And I know Valdez gave up a couple runs last night. I'm not concerned about that. For the most part, he still looks like himself. He still looks well composed on the mound. He's doing his thing. I trust him 100%. And Tanner Scott looks just as good as last year, if not better, with the way he's commanding the ball early this season. Excited to see him get some more innings under his belt and maybe transition into the ninth inning closer guy. I don't know. I mean, Valdez, I don't hate him as the closer because he's just such a strange change of pace coming out of the bullpen. The opponent has not faced anyone up until that point like him. They really don't face anyone else in the league that's like Cesar Valdez. So, quite frankly, I like that surprise factor. I like that change of pace that he brings where his velocity, it's really slow, but those change-ups are downright unhittable at times. So I said it last week. It's in the back of my mind. I keep saying, when are opponents going to figure Valdez out? When are they going to start camping on these change-ups and getting some base hits out of them and really making him pay? It didn't happen last year. It's happened very little so far this year. I trust Valdez. I trust him. And I love watching him pitch. I mean, above everything else, he's so much fun to watch. In a season like this where you're not going to win a lot of games, what are we looking for as fans? We're looking for development from the young guys, but we're also just looking for excitement and things that are fun. And Cesar Valdez is not a young guy. He's not a prospect by any means, but he's fun and he's exciting to watch. Love watching him pitch. So I don't care about the runs given up last night. Not worried about him one bit. And again, Tanner Scott has been phenomenal. The other guys that we were hoping to be able to rely on, Shawn Armstrong and Paul Fry, in limited appearances so far this year, not great. Shawn Armstrong got knocked around early, so his ERA is way inflated. And Paul Fry just not quite there. Got the job done with the help of Anthony Santander in the bottom of the 11th in that third game against the Yankees. But other than that, he just hasn't looked like the Paul Fry we've seen the past couple of years. And that Paul Fry isn't lights out, but he's better than this. He's usually a little more composed than this, has more control than this. So I think as the season progresses, Shawn Armstrong, that ERA is definitely going to plummet down farther, and he's going to be that reliable guy that we saw last year. And Paul Fry is going to be that reliable guy because, look, I mean, these are the only other guys really in this bullpen besides, I mean, we'll get into some of the long men here, but as far as your typical bullpen guys, Paul Fry, Armstrong, Tanner Scott, Valdez, other guys just don't have major league experience like that. These two Rule 5 guys in particular, Tyler Wells, Max Soroller, great stories for them to make the team, but they're Rule 5 guys. They haven't pitched above A ball in the minors. And now they're at the major league level. And you can't send them down. You have to carry them for a good portion of the season, or else you got to put them on waivers. And realistically, those guys aren't going to clear waivers, or they're going to be reclaimed by their former team. So you're in this weird spot, and we know the Orioles have had this weird relationship with Rule 5 picks. Going back to the Showalter Duquette era, they had this weird relationship with Rule 5 picks. Let's give credit where it's due. Max Soroller, a kid that's never pitched above A ball, a kid that maybe, I don't know if he would have made the majors if he had a normal career trajectory. You don't know. But here he is. He makes the Orioles roster to start the season. His first appearance, his first major league appearance. Hey kid, Yankee Stadium, go in there. Bases loaded. Aaron Judge at the plate. Get us out of the inning. Strikes out Aaron Judge. Gets the next out. Gets out of the inning without giving up any other runs. Great moment. Loved that for that kid. And he didn't stop there. He pitched another inning or two clean. Didn't give up anything. How about that for your major league debut as a Rule 5 kid? Never even sniffed AA, AAA. First start in the Bronx going up against Aaron Judge. Yeah, that's a great story right there. But he's not going to keep doing that. He's not going to keep that up. No one should expect him to keep that up. I'm not talking down on him. I'm not trying to disparage him. I'm rooting for the guy. I'm rooting for Tyler Wells. But we can't expect these guys to keep this up. We can't expect them to even come close to doing something like that on a consistent basis. And this is where my issue comes in, because we're only a week into the season. But as we get a month, 2 months, and we start getting into these dog days of summer, the labor of a 162-game season is going to start bearing down on this pitching staff. It's going to start bearing down on this bullpen. And the Rule 5 guys like Soroller, like Wells, they're not going to hold up. They're just not. But your hands are tied because you got to keep them for a certain amount of time, or you got to release them or let them go, waivers. Again, they'd probably be claimed by somebody. I don't think Elias wants to do that, but you're in this weird spot with two Rule 5 guys. I don't know why you put yourself in this situation where you're carrying two Rule 5 guys. And I don't even care that, look, the Orioles aren't going to be competitive this year. We know that. They're not competing for a playoff spot. That's fine. But we're talking about a full season. If this was 60 games like last year, who carry your entire bullpen of Rule 5 guys for all I care? 60 games, anyone could get through that. You know, you're not going to get worn down in 60 games. But when you're playing a full season and you're carrying two Rule 5 guys, it's just you're crippling yourself. How do you expect Brandon Hyde to manage this bullpen when he's got two Rule 5 guys in there? I don't know. And on top of that, again, let's go back to a season like 2019. That pitching staff was god-awful. Brandon Hyde was looking for fans in the stands to come on to the mound in some of those games and just eat up some innings, because they couldn't get out of innings to save their life in some of those blowout losses in 2019. 2 years later, that's not the case. There's depth here, and there's guys in AAA who barely missed out on making the club to start with, either as a starter or as a bullpen guy. It's not going to be long before those guys are knocking down the door again and saying, hey, we're here too. And those guys are going to need to come back up to the majors. Keegan Aiken being one of the guys at the forefront for a starter role. He's going to bump someone from the starting rotation. Who's it going to be? Right now, looks like Lopez. But I don't think Lopez gets sent down. I think he's major league stuff, so he goes to the bullpen. Who gets bumped from the bullpen? You know, and you're tying your hands. You're handcuffing yourself handicapping yourself with the rules for these Rule 5 guys, with how long you have to carry them. You're putting yourself in such a tough spot, and out of all the things to be mad about with this franchise and the way they're constructing a roster, this is probably pretty trivial. And again, when you're not competing for a playoff spot, does it really even matter? No. But it's just puzzling. It's questionable. There's going to be guys knocking on the door within the month that are ready to go, are ready to pitch at the major league level, and you're going to have to justify holding them down there while Tyler Wells and Max Sorolla are up here struggling to get through major league innings. All right, let's talk a little Maryland basketball before we get out of here. Sort of a continuation of what I was talking about last week, this Mark Turgeon contract situation. We have the full details. It's been confirmed by the university. 3-year extension. I can already hear the groaning. I can already hear the huffing and puffing. But let's take a look at the details. Because on paper, an extension for 3 years for a guy who has done what Mark Turgeon has done, that sounds ridiculous. But if you look at the finer details, I think this makes sense. And really, I explained in detail last week why an extension for him in general makes sense. I was looking more so for 1 or 2 years more, just to ensure that your good recruiting class in the next year doesn't back out. Also gives you the chance to grab some really nice transfers like they already did. 3 years, though, I don't know. It even caught me off guard when I first saw it. But now I've explored the finer details, and it's not that bad. And here's the big reason why. It's all about the buyout. Without an extension, Mark Turgeon would have 2 years left on his deal. And if his contract was terminated prior to May 1st, 2022, Maryland would owe him $5 million in full. Now with this extension, they have thinned out the buyout. They've spread things out. And as the years progress here, the buyout gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and more manageable. And now again, remember the tricky financial situation that the University of Maryland is in right now, still paying 2 football coaches full-time because you had that insane buyout for Turgeon. So $5 million by 2023 drops down to $4.5 million. By 2024, $3.5 million. That's a ways down the road, and I think most fans would want him out right now if they had their say. But again, it's just not financially feasible. I know that I've said at some point when you make the transition from one coach to the next, for a school like Maryland, you're going to have to bite the bullet and endure 1 or 2, at most 3 rough seasons while you let the new coach come in. So whenever that change does come at head coach, there's going to be a year or 2 where things aren't good. There's no way to really avoid that. That's just the way it is. I'm not going to let the threat of 1 or 2 bad years keep me from firing Mark Turgeon if he truly doesn't deserve to be the head coach of the team anymore. With that being said, let's take a look at 2021 in particular. We have a really good recruiting class coming in, not just the standard good recruiting class, a really good one. One that rivals some of Turgeon's best recruiting classes in the past. It just makes sense to say, hey, let's hold on to him. We can't get rid of him for monetary reasons. And he's also got a shot. Let's give him credit. He's got a shot to put together his best team in 2021, and he's had some good teams. But the way this roster's shaping up, this could be his best. I got no reason to believe it can't be. On paper, they're already getting that national attention. Key phrase here is certainly way too early, but that's the fun of it. That's why they're being released. All of these outlets, all of these prognosticators, they've got the Terps as high as number 5 in the country in early preseason rankings. You know, you talk about that good recruiting class, but the 2 transfers that we talked about last week, those are a huge factor. And I'm starting to write down and pencil in this starting five on paper, and it's looking really, really good. The only question is anyone going to leave? Is anyone going to transfer out? Is anyone going to go to the NBA? Those are your big questions kind of standing in the way of will this be a super team or not. But at the very least, between the recruits and the two transfers, you're looking at a team that is leaps and bounds better than what they were this year. And certainly on paper would be a team that would be competing for the top spot in the Big Ten. But it can get even better than that. It's hinging on a couple guys. Darryl Morsell, Aaron Wiggins, Eric Ayala. Those are kind of the three key guys we're keeping our eye on right now. And we'll start with Darryl Morsell, who shocked a lot of people this past week by declaring for the NBA draft. He is eligible for a fifth year if he wants it. A lot of people thought, hey, why not come back to Maryland for your fifth year? You've been a staple of the program for your entire 4 years that you've been here. He's had Mark Turgeon's back every step of the way. He was the emotional leader of this team this past year where they really just were not a well-put-together team, were not a well-constructed roster. And he was the emotional leader that got them to the NCAA tournament and helped them win an upset over UConn in the first round. But not only is he going to, go to the NBA draft, have his, get some attention at the combine, get some feedback, I'm sure, from professional scouts, also entered the transfer portal and released this weird statement. I'm declaring for the draft. I'm also putting my name in the transfer portal, but I'm also not ruling out coming back to Maryland. So he's got like these three avenues that he's opened for himself. And I just didn't expect him to be the guy that would try to transfer out of here. And I don't say this to be mean. I don't say this to kind of, be bitter or sound like a bitter ex, so to speak, and say, do you think you could really do better than me? But quite frankly, does Darryl Morsell think he can find a better situation than what he has right there for him at Maryland? Where's he going to go and compete in another major what team in another major conference is going to bring him in and give him significant minutes, either as a starter or one of the first people off the bench? If you're going to leave Maryland, it would seemingly be to go to a team that's got a legit chance to go to on a Final Four run. I don't know many teams that are, perennial contenders to go to the Final Four that need a guy like Darryl Morsell. He's not a superstar. He's not a leading scorer. He's a really good defensive player. He's a good emotional leader on your team. That's about it. So the role that he would play at Maryland, maybe if it's not even a starter, he would still see significant minutes. And it would be his team. There would be a lot of other, senior players and older players on this team, but it would be his team. It's his team for the taking if he wants it. So I don't know. Maybe it's as simple as just wanting a change of scenery. He's from Baltimore, goes and plays at the University of Maryland. Maybe he just wants a chance to move somewhere and live somewhere else for a while and get that experience. I don't know. Maybe it's that simple. I wouldn't deny him that. I'd be a little disappointed as a selfish fan. But again, I don't know. This one, it's just weird. The transfer portal for him just seems weird. And we'll keep our fingers crossed because I think every Maryland fan would love to see Darryl Morsell come back and be a part of what is shaping up to be a really good team for the 2021 season. Other guys we got to keep our eyes on, as I said, Aaron Wiggins and Eric Ayala. Both of them have also declared for the NBA draft. No real surprises here. Again, both of them entering their senior season. For Aaron Wiggins, he's a guy that when he came to Maryland as a freshman had NBA upside. The recruiting rankings, the grades, anyone who's seen him play said that this kid's going to have the size and the athleticism to be molded into a future first-round pick. Now, it was a slow roll at Maryland. As a freshman, he was a three-point specialist off the bench. really good three-point shooter. That counts for a lot in the NBA right now. But he wasn't a complete player. Takes a step towards that in 2019, but not quite all the way there. And then this past year, not for the whole season, but really down the stretch and in the games that mattered most, he was the alpha dog. He was the go-to scoring threat, the guy that can just, in the crunch, game on the line, you feed him the ball, he's getting a basket. So I think between that and really the biggest factor here, which is his age, he's 22 years old, he's already, over the hill, so to speak, in terms of how NBA draft prospects are looked at. If you're over the age of 19, you're seen as old or too old for the NBA draft. So he's 22, and he's not knocking down the door as this bona fide stud NBA prospect. I don't know if he's even a late first rounder. I think at this point he's a safe bet to be a second round pick, but he would need a really good combine, I think, to get himself, safely into the late first round. And by no means is he touching lottery pick territory. He's not even going to come close to that. But the age is the big factor. And I think I've said this before with him. You're 22 years old. You've done enough to earn yourself NBA attention. Why not just go? Why not just go and do that now? Because being realistic, this is probably your best chance to make it in the NBA. You're not going to get taken in the first round, but if you find yourself taken by the right team that's going to put you in the right situation, you'll, make some noise in the G League for a while, and then, hey, maybe there's an injury, maybe your team goes through a rebuild, you'll get an opportunity to play significant minutes or at least be a bench guy at the NBA level. A lot has to go right, but that's your best case scenario if you're Aaron Wiggins. If he comes back to Maryland, we would all love that. He would be, again, the best athlete on the team, the best scoring option on the team. Tremendous all-around player. Driving to the rim, three-point shooting, he does it all. But at the conclusion of the season, he would be 23 years old. And at that point, you're way over the hill. You could have an insanely good senior season if you're Aaron Wiggins, but the fact that he's 23 years old at that point would pretty much negate the leap that he's hoping to take and make himself a guaranteed first-round pick. So I think for him, it's sort of a now or never type of mindset, and I would not knock him at all. I think it's probably in his best interest to take that leap and go to the NBA. But he's left the door open for a return, which is a great sign for Maryland fans. Let's enjoy that for what it is. Eric Ayala, on the other hand, not an NBA player, at least certainly not right now. I don't think he'll ever be an NBA player, but, this is sort of what I was saying with Morsell. Again, if you have the opportunity to participate in an NBA combine and get good feedback from the best scouts in the entire world, why would you not do that? So I don't know. I'm not in Eric Ayala's head. I'm not him. I don't know what his mindset truly is here. But my best guess is this is like an Anthony Cowan situation that we saw a couple of years ago. He declares for the NBA draft, leaving open the possibility of returning. Really, the entire time, he knows he's going to return. They just want the chance to participate in the combine and get that necessary feedback, because in the case of Anthony Cowan, he went there, he got his feedback, and I'm sure that helped him make some adjustments to his game. And we saw the tremendous season he had as a senior. So maybe Eric Ayala is going to hear some stuff from NBA scouts that he never heard from his coaches here at Maryland. There's a lot of valuable information to be gained here. So my hope is that Eric Ayala takes advantage of that unique opportunity that he has to participate in an NBA combine, and then, returns to Maryland for his senior season next year. Again, is another leader on this team. He was the leading scorer for the Terps last year, so I think he would be in line to be one of the go-to offensive options in, again, what is stacking up to be a really good lineup. I mean, let's just go through it right here, because I've I wrote it down and I'm excited about it. You could have a scenario where your starting five is Fats Russell, Eric Ayala, Aaron Wiggins, Dante Scott, and Big Q, Wahab, the big man transfer from Georgetown. How about that for a starting five? And let's say Darryl Morsell comes back and he's a bench player or an occasional starter. That still leaves you with 3 incoming freshmen as significant bench options, Hakeem Hart as a junior, Jarius Hamilton as a senior. Those are all guys that would see significant minutes, or you would be trying to figure out a way to get them into the game. This team has a chance of being extremely deep next year, and that would be really exciting. But at the very least, I think their starting five is going to be looking like that super team that they had in, 2016 with Melo Trimble and Rasheed Suleiman and Robert Carter Jr., Diamond Stone, Jake Layman. That super team starting five where 4 of those 5 guys are legit like leading scorer options on any given night. We'll see. The Terps did lose another person to the transfer portal. Aquan Smart is leaving after just his freshman season, only averaged 1.7 points per game. Just did not see really any play time in the Big Ten conference schedule. Maybe early on, but especially the last 2 months of the season, I don't think he saw the court at all, unless it was a blowout. So I am disappointed in this loss for the Terps. I think it's a byproduct of a couple things. First and foremost, he sees that the writing's on the wall. 3 incoming freshmen, 2 transfers. He knows how, even if Aaron Wiggins leaves and Darryl Morsell isn't here, just the opportunity for him to pick up significant minutes in year 2, it's not looking that great. But at the same time, I think it is a missed opportunity because Aquan Smart is an extremely athletic player, more raw, just not, his game isn't as refined, especially at the college level. We saw that in the minutes that he did get early in the season. He makes some mistakes, but you give him a full off season without this COVID threat looming over you and, restricting what you can and can't do in terms of how often these guys can be in the building, how often they can be together, not just as teammates, but with their coaching staff. Give him a full off season with none of that restriction, none of that COVID cloud looming over you. You get him on a good dietary plan. You get him, to go with a really good gym regimen. You'll get some muscle on those bones because, again, he's more of a scrawny kid, but they've done it with plenty of players. Look, they beefed up Sticks. Kevin Herter, they put weight on him. They put weight on Jake Layman. They put weight on everyone. Aaron Wiggins has put on weight, has been filled out more. This is a D1 college program. They know how to do this. They know how to put weight on these guys and build muscle. And I think Aquan Smart, with the athleticism he has, you build that frame up a little bit more so he's able to withstand the toughness of the college game. You give him the chance to keep working, refining his game. I think, if he goes to, let's say, a slightly smaller program and transfers there, he could even possibly start. I think at the very least, if he goes to a slightly smaller program than Maryland, and it could still be in a big conference. So, it's disappointing because I think he's a player with a lot of upside, a ton of upside, quite frankly. But that's the name of the game, and these guys have the right to enter the transfer portal and seek the best opportunity for themselves, and really can't blame them. So that's the situation they're in. But again, even with the loss of Aquan Smart, your bench is extremely deep, and we'll see how this develops and comes together over the summer. And, as we approach in the fall, the start of the season, what kind of attention is this team going to get? I think for sure Maryland's a top 25 preseason team next year. That's a guarantee. But just how high can they be? Can they be top 15? Could they be top 10? I don't know. I mean, just how many, again, what are the other Blue Bloods going to do in terms of improvements? So something that we will be keeping our eye on for sure. All right, that is episode 148. Thank you guys, as always, for listening. You can be sure, if you're not already, you're a first-time listener, subscribe on any platform. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can find the Charm City Birdwatch podcast. So tell a family member, tell a friend, tell a coworker, anyone that you know that likes the Orioles, the Ravens, Maryland, tell them about the podcast. Spread the word. I'll be here next week, episode 149. We're getting close. Going to hit the 150 mark very soon. That'll be exciting. I have nothing planned for that milestone, but that will be a special moment where I say, as always, I can't believe we made 150 of these stupid things. But we'll deal with that in 2 weeks. Thanks again for listening. I'll talk to you next week.